television, Portraits in Art. I'm Julia Batchelor. Today on the program, we introduce you to a trio of talented individuals. Sadeh, a talented artist and retired art instructor who utilizes his various artistic skills to create paintings of pure imagination. We also meet Amanda Brittin, a multidisciplined artist that is currently focusing her creative energy into forging handcrafted jewelry. And up first, we have Darlene Winfield, an incredible artist that loves to capture the beauty of the Canadian landscape. I would best describe Darlene as a free spirit who has led a very interesting life that has taken her on many adventures around the globe. But what I think is her greatest adventure to date is the exploration of nature through the lens of an artist's palette. Darlene has been focusing her energy on creating works that capture the incredible beauty of the great outdoors using light, form, and color.
I always wanted to travel when I was young and see all the great museums with all the paintings and everything else. And as I was traveling under different circumstances, I ended up doing some modeling, and I just fell into it one day when I thought I was going for lunch. I ended up getting a modeling job. I couldn't refuse the money, and it became something bigger than I ever thought it would become. And then I came back to Canada. I worked at a bank and had a regular life. And finally, I started painting again and drawing. And it became this. It's all a string of reactions, and I ended up here, and I couldn't be happier with my life now. Creating art makes me feel like I'm living in my own world, and I have some control over my life and what I'm doing, and it's a good feeling, and it's not one that we often have in life, and painting provides me with that, and I really enjoy being in my paintings. Right now I am a full-time painter. It took me a long time to get here. So I'm planning to keep living for quite a while so that I can reach some of my goals. And I was told by many people not to try to be a full-time artist because I would starve, and I've actually gained weight. My technique is to use a palette knife, and I use different layers, and it almost feels like you're putting butter on the canvas, and you use different colors. You have to be very careful because otherwise you can make mud, and it's not very attractive. And I use a brush for certain segments of the painting, and so I fuse the two to give it a special feeling that I hope is all my own. I was always fascinated by Vermeer, Rembrandt, John Singer Sargent, the way that they played with light. And I found that very different than perhaps the group of seven. The way that they used the paint was, to me, very, very different. And I thought that I liked the facet of that, but I love the group of seven look because it's so Canadian and where my heart is. And I've taken both of those styles and sort of intertwined them and made what I felt was my piece of art and my expression. What inspires me is the Canadian landscape. I love the rugged feel of it, and I'm trying to emulate that on my paintings to really feel it when the viewer looks at the painting, that they're there. And that's what I'm reaching for by using these different styles in the palette knife, and to bring the painting to the person. I love painting large, and it makes me feel like I am there and I'm really exploring while I'm in the painting. I sometimes hate to leave my painting, even though I know I can overwork it, and I try not to do that anymore. And I think you need to leave your painting at a certain time and let go. is important because it is the soul of humanity to me. It is something that we do that keeps evolving and changing, and there's so many beautiful pieces of art out there, and I think art brings a type of peace and also an intelligence to the human race. My expression of painting is basically our land, our responsibility, and I hope that I'm reaching people with that idea through my paintings, that they see trees and realize we won't be breathing if we don't have trees. Art is what I live and breathe, and it keeps me going, it challenges me, and it gives me a meaning for my life.
Asher Sadeh has spent his entire life pursuing his artistic endeavors. From an early age, Asher has been recognized for his talent and was inspired to pursue a career that allowed him to use that talent. He worked for many years as a teaching master at the School of Design and Visual Arts at Georgian College, and now retired, Asher is able to pursue his love of drawing, photography, and painting on a full-time basis.
The activity of art, producing art, any kind of creative work, I think, it gives you, for lack of a better term, a great high. I get this tremendous feeling of accomplishment when it goes well, and it just doesn't stay there. It's then shared, because I have a physical result of what I've done that I can show to others. So it's, in a sense, it's sort of, the activity can be selfish initially. It's very self-concerned, very extremely introspective, but the minute I'm done, it's, as I said, it goes out into the world, and that's a wonderful feeling to be able to show your work and have it appreciated by others. It's like somebody reading your mind, because very often our feelings just remain inside, and it's hard to get out. This way, it's put into a physical form, and then other people can see that, and hopefully, if it's successful, get some of that feeling, that grand, wonderful feeling that I had when completing the painting. I like all kinds of image making, and I enjoy photography. I've had a number of exhibits in photography, and also I photograph landscapes and different things that interest me, and then I can use those as references often for my painting. Any kind of picture making I enjoy, even construction. I like carpentry and things like that. Oil painting is my favorite medium. I've worked in watercolor. I find it's not very forgiving. Oil painting, I can make changes as I go. I'm often altering it and adjusting it and inventing as I go. I might carefully plan a painting as far as I can to get off to a good start, but then as I'm working, I discover other ways to deal with it and other processes to use, other elements to put in or to take out of a painting. I like to feel creative in the sense of being like a movie director. So to me, the painting is like a stage or the scene. And then what I do is I take my actors, it could be 20 figures, it might be one, and then I can decide, okay, you stand there, and I'll decide on the set design, the lighting, and so on. So I'm creating the image rather than simply copying something. Now there's some very good artists who can sit and look at a seed and copy it leaf by leaf or finger by finger, and I think that's quite good too. For me, it's usually not enough. I want to say something about it. I want to use my imagination, hopefully make some kind of statement or express thoughts or feelings about situations, but mostly creating situations that never existed. I like to add a sense of mystery to the picture, and to me that's what I enjoy, like saying a good novel or a good movie. It's something to wonder about. It's not clear-cut. The message isn't just upfront and obvious, and that's it, and not worthy of a second look. I like to create something that gets people to think. If something has a catch, something intriguing, even something superficial, grabs the attention, and hopefully beyond that I have something underneath that surface eye grabber to get people wondering and thinking. And it's a very time-consuming process. The pictures take quite a long time to do. They go through several stages, lots of revisions, maybe sometimes too many revisions, but I like to get it just right. That's why I'm glad when I have a gallery show, it finally forces me to stop, finish it, sign it, and put the picture into a frame and be done with it. It's very interesting. I do a painting for my own purpose in a sense, but being aware of an audience. But once it's out there in the world, it's like your kids. It's like you raise a child that goes out in the world, and after that, so much more happens that you could not have intended in terms of how people see it, how they interpret it, and everyone brings their own psychological baggage to whatever they view, and every person will see the same painting in a different way, which to me is very interesting. I have certain intentions. Sometimes it hits the nail on the head where someone will say something and I say, yeah, that's exactly what I had in mind. And then they'll say something which I didn't have in mind, or maybe I was unconsciously thinking of it while I painted, or something where they see something totally different from what I had intended, and that's quite something too. I've been asked often how creating art makes me feel. That's a tough one to answer. It's kind of a roller coaster. In fact, when I hear people say, oh, how lucky you are, you've got a hobby, what fun. It's not. I would say much of the time, maybe most of the time, it's very frustrating because what I'm trying to do is very difficult. It's not just, flipping a smear of paint and saying, wow, look at this. It's a lot of development, and until I get it right, I'm very fussy that way. It's very difficult, very frustrating. But I think it's like a lot of things in life, relations and so on. You put up with a lot of difficulty and challenges to your patient for those few moments of, glory, where when you get it right, there's nothing that can match that feeling. Things come together. You've created something unique that no one else has ever done. And it's a sense of achievement. The result of all your years of experience and looking and the particular effort on that one painting comes to fruition, and you finally say, yeah, that's it.
Like many artists, Amanda Brittin has been displaying her creative side since childhood. But instead of pursuing a career in the arts, Amanda studied and worked in the fields of both archaeology and anthropology. But it was these sciences that have actually inspired and guided Amanda in her latest endeavor, which is creating handcrafted jewelry using raw natural materials that are reminiscent of artifacts that one might find on an archaeological dig.
are trying to create a piece of jewelry, the stone is, if you're going to work with a stone with it, that really is the inspiration. That's the starting point, and your design comes to highlight that stone, to make the piece work with that stone. And so everything you're trying to do is to highlight that particular piece. Or even if you're just working with metal, for example, if I was just making a bronze wedding ring, the bronze itself, because I like to combine silver with the bronze and then create these colorful or dark patinas. So you're trying to make that piece work, but you've got to work with because silver and bronze, they have little different melting points, and make it come together in a way that's going to be just a beautiful piece, but simple usually with that. I'm very interested in process and how you come about, how to work with the metal, how to make it work, and how to work around the problems that it presents to you, because things want to melt when you don't want them to melt. You have to work at the right temperatures. There's a lot of technical aspects to working with metal that you really have to learn how to work with. But the two come together, because sometimes the problems mean you have to creatively problem solve to make the piece that you're trying to achieve work out. And I like that combination, frustrating though it may be sometimes. For me, art is just part of my everyday life. It's not even something I generally separate from day-to-day living. Whether I'm using a mug that a potter, I really enjoy that potter's work, or whether I'm wearing a piece of jewelry that I like, that I've maybe acquired from another artist friend, or have some pieces of art hanging in my house. It's just part of my everyday existence. Professionally, I've been creating art for about 25 years. I started painting. That was my first love. I really, really enjoy color. And I started doing painted floor cloths, which sort of it combines both paint, but it's also very functional, because you can make mats out of them, these little floor cloths, and larger pieces as well. And I really like art that's functional, something that you can use every day, that's just part of your general life. I'm really inspired by nature. That's a big source of inspiration. I love birds. I tend to work with birds, different animals, but I'm very stylized. I like funky kind of elements, so that is a big inspiration. And because I have a background in archaeology, I look at some of the Viking, some of the Roman pieces. Garnet and bronze would often be used together, and those are also sources of inspiration. Not to mimic what was there, but I love the simplicity and you can see how handmade those pieces are. I really like that. So I would say that my jewelry is very rustic in style, and those are sources of inspiration for me. Making a piece, I'll take a look at the stone. Let's say, for example, that I'm working with a piece of turquoise, a piece of ribbon turquoise, which is, ribbon turquoise has a little stream of turquoise going through a darker brown matrix usually, so they almost look like little landscapes. So what I would do with a piece like that is, that stone looking like a small landscape makes me think, I've got to work with that to highlight that aspect. So I might I create the bezel to set the stone, because there's the practical aspect of actually locking that stone in place. You don't want to use glues and things like that if you don't have to. You want to mechanically lock it in place using silver. So I'll create the bezel and then the background piece of silver, and then what do I want to do to highlight that? Make that look like a little river running through a landscape, for example, with the ribbon turquoise. So what I might do is actually create undulating pieces to go around it, so that you see the movement of the turquoise within that matrix. And then, does it need anything beyond that? Is it going to be a ring? Is it going to be a necklace? So the piece really tells me usually what I should do with it. Sometimes you change your mind halfway through, thinking, oh, I'm going to create a necklace out of that. But then as the piece moves along, you just think that's got to be a ring. So it just it's really motivated by the stone itself usually. The amount of time that I take to create a piece can really vary. A very simple, say for example, a wedding ring that's just a wedding band, I might be able to create that very quickly in about an hour. Whereas a piece that I'm taking maybe a really lovely opal that's a little bit more expensive that I want to create a really fine piece out of that might take me 4 or 5 hours. And then there's all the design time. Often you'll put a stone out, you'll sit, you'll draw around that piece of stone and come up with some different designs, reject a few of those designs, so that process can maybe you could work on that for several hours and keep changing your mind about it. But then the actual creation of the piece could take 4 or 5 hours if it's a little bit of a fancier piece. You know, when I'm sitting in my studio and maybe I've got a piece of music playing, I've got my iPod going, I sit and it's just happiness, I would have to say. It's just really joyful. I create pretty much every day. I have for many, many years. It's just part of my everyday experience, and if I have to go a few days and not be creating, I start to crave to get back into the studio. It's really an enjoyable moment. That's why setting up a studio environment is that you enjoy, you know, whether it's a bit of a cluttered mess or whatever. If your little workstation area it can really bring a lot of joy to you, and that's what I find when I'm sitting there creating pieces. Unless I'm working on a really frustrating piece, then you might not feel so happy, but for the most part, yes, I really find it a joyful thing to do. I think art's important because we all crave it, you know, and just part of our everyday life. Whether it's music or writing or visual art, whatever it is, I think that's just part of what makes us human, that creative process, that need for something to create art and to have art around you. I think that's part of everybody's experience, no matter how young, how old, even if they don't even realize it. I think people have art in their lives in very, very many ways.
Henry David Thoreau once said, "This world is but a canvas to our imagination." And I believe the artists we have met on today's program exemplify that idea. Each one has been inspired by what they see in their daily lives and have interpreted their vision in their own unique way, using various materials to achieve that artistic vision. For more information about the people on today's show, please visit our website for details. Once again, thank you for watching Color and Vision, Portraits in Art. I'm Julia Batchelor, and I'll see you next time.